Welcome to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes to Cultivate Consciousness, where, for the next 2 hours, Bridgette Dolgoff and Kelsey Sweet will be sharing their knowledge and understanding with their own beautifully unique twists on all topics related to helping humanity to achieve betterment of health in body and in mind. Settle yourselves down on this fine Saturday evening. For now, it is time for Bridgette and Kelsey.
Had to wait for that last trip. All right, everybody. It is we got to come up with a new thing. I want to put like gruesome twosome, but we got to come up with something else that rhymes.
I agree. Something better than hostesses with the mostesses.
Yes. But anyway, hey, it is Bridgette and Kelsey, and we are live on Revolution Radio, Studio B, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this fine Saturday evening. We're headed off. Today is, look out for that Libra full moon tomorrow. Should be an interesting one. Lots of people having all kinds of emotional stuff going on.
Emotional balance or emotional imbalancing.
Yeah, maybe the world isn't as fair as they thought it was.
Oh, bummer.
I know.
Oh,
all right.
They got to come down here with the rest of us.
I know. Down here in the gutter. No, I'm just kidding. Under the bridge.
There we go.
So anyway, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You can go to our website, and somebody, did a great job on our website. Now we have categories if you look at the top of the website, and you can choose your page that you want to go to. Yay. And we have the donation page that has everything on it, has, one-time credit card or a debit card, even unemployment card. If you got a debit card. Also Patreon, and there's some snail mail at the end, address and all of that, who you make the paper money out to. And then let's see what else. And also we have Zazzle.com if you go to our shop. And I'm getting ready to order some shirts. I'm going to get a couple male jerseys, and I'm going to get with the Revolution Radio theme on it, so I'm kind of excited about that. And to support my network. So you can go there, you can get all kinds of information, whatever you need. And then there's also the schedule. You can go there and look and see what all the hosts are up to. And we're in the Studio B, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that would be carrying stones and digging holes to cultivate consciousness. And that would be us. And that's it. Also, if you want more information about the show, you can go to my website, and you can go to the page I made for it underneath the show name. And it has all kinds of information about Kelsey, myself, about the show, all kinds of links and information. And then Kelsey also has her own website, kelseysweet.com. And you can go there and check that mess out, too.
Oh, yeah. Have fun.
Have fun. Dig.
All
Dig, baby. Dig.
To explore through in there. All kinds. Somewhere in there's the radio page, and eventually I'll get it all fully complete. But I feel like my website's one of my favorite art pieces, where it's just ongoing and ever morphing and ever changing, and I just love web design so much, but I only do it for myself. And but it's fun to play around in. It's fun to grow with it and have it grow with me.
A few of mine need some serious updating, which I cannot seem to get to, but that's okay.
Never
eventually.
It's time consuming. I don't know if people really realize how much time goes into like the creative process of marketing and social media. Like it takes a lot of energy to make this stuff happen. Thank goodness it's all simplified, though. I don't have to do any coding. I can do a little bit, but...
Right, and I try to blog every week on mine and put something up, and that's very time-consuming.
Mm-hmm.
just to, stay up in the search engines.
Yeah, and then
So,
you've got to create content and
yeah,
respond to the comments and
I get rid of all those.
do.
Yeah, I delete any kind of comments. I do not like them. No, I do not like them, Sam. I am. I do not eat them. I do not wear them. I do not like comments of any kind.
Yeah, I thought we got rid of that. No.
Mm-hmm.
That's illegal now.
Yeah, well, nowadays, because I'm being trolled on my YouTube channel, because they can't, well, I'm not going to talk about it because, then they may get mad, but um, now if I forget to turn the delete comments off, there's like about 6 people that post porn on there, porn links
Oh.
in the comments. Yeah. And you can get in serious trouble and they can take down your channel. And that's how they actually take down a lot of channels. People think it's because of the content. No, it's because of what people are posting in your comments.
Interesting. Well, I saw like on, was it Facebook or something? There's like links to like something similar, just like pornographic type sites or whatever. I don't know. Or like just you can type in like certain phrases into like just very generic phrases into like the search engine in Google, and all it would come up with is that kind of just nasty crap. And like child porn is so gross. Oh, it's bad people.
Yeah, personally, a lot of just porn period is pretty gross. And I get that, on some level it's probably, in LA, there's people who think that they're artists producing some of it, and people that feel they're real life actors. I guess they are kind of acting.
In a sense. It's interesting because I was living in Los Angeles for a while. I was in Burbank and lived in an apartment close to a place called Sardo's, which is like a pizzeria kind of thing. And the guy I was dating at the time, for his birthday, his brother came to town, and we decided to go down to Sardo's. And we got there, and it happened to be porn star karaoke night. We're like, no kidding.
Were they naked?
No, it's just porn stars coming down, having fun, having a good time. But I think it was like Ron Jeremy's birthday or I think it was his birthday too, or whatever, because they announced Ron Jeremy onto the thing, and I saw this guy walk in. I was like, what? But interesting enough, I got to meet the guy. He grabbed my butt and offered me a job. I said, no, thank you. But I still have the t-shirt. That was interesting. Definitely interesting. Such a strange culture of people. And just, I wonder just how much just drugs and boobs and money go through things just to keep people dissociated. But I wonder too of like how much of creating safer spaces for that kind of stuff prevents people from doing things perhaps that they shouldn't do. I don't know if it helps with like rape rates or sexual assault or anything. Because is it Japan or like, I don't want to say Korea, but one of the Asian countries where you can just access so many different types of pornography all the time, but it's more like normed and somewhat readily available as a means to like keep people in check. I don't know. I think perhaps maybe it could be done artistically or creatively, like filmography type stuff, but there's a really fine line of just crossing into some very dark and disturbing things. Like sex is so sacred and it's such an energy that I don't know. Well, I guess all this stuff is on my mind because April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I think, across the U.S. And a lot of my work and some of my initiatives are focused on April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month and sexual assault awareness. And so as we're nearing the beginning of April, I've been doing a lot of my research, and I'm just very open to conversations about this kind of stuff and why people and what people like what drives people to do these sort of things and what things we can do to heal people on both sides so this kind of stuff stops. People just take it way too far, or like the stuff with all the adrenochrome and all like the children, like it's too much. Like it just can't. Ugh. If we could like rescue everybody who has been sex trafficked and just eliminate sexual assault, that would be great.
Well, there'd have to be. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, people would just have to. There would have to be a lot more, laws, public, public laws where people come together and they make the decisions about, what's going to happen. But I mean, across the board, I mean, nobody should be really married minimum until maybe they're 18.
Maybe.
I mean, I woke up at 35 realizing, like, thank God I never got married because I had no idea how to have a relationship with another person till then. So no matter what have happened, when I was younger, it would have completely failed. But I remember getting in a huge argument with a person that was highly involved in common law, constitutional law. And under that law, they were claiming that all, girls can be married, at age 14 under that law. And it just really like flipped me out because it was like a 70-year-old man talking about it, like in a kind of entitled way, disgusting way. And I was just like, it's so wrong. It's so
wrong.
It's so wrong. And kids should be protected.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the parents had better behavior, then you would be able to raise teenagers with better behavior.
As morally sound persons.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is that I didn't even know about this until I ended up having, I think this is like maybe like, I don't know, 10 years ago, when I was doing maybe less than 10 years ago, I was doing kind of like an online TVs. Had a TV show. I mean, it's like radio, but TV. And I had somebody contact me about why, boys have a lot of trouble, sexually. Like, they have a really hard time focusing on everything because they're kind of in, they call it hormones. But the way that it was explained to me that this kind of stuff was done on purpose to the population, because of mind control, because, it's the thing to do. It's stuff that, I think we've talked about before, but not on radio, where if boys are non-circumcised, they will use more of their brain, the brain in their head. But if they're uncircumcised, what happens is their member rubs on everything. And so
they're circumcised.
Yeah, if they're circumcised, they have a really hard time because, like I said, their member is rubbing on everything, and that's all they can think about is sex. So it's like something that's been actually done to the public.
And as far as conditioning, because it's conditioned behavior.
It is. And it's conditioned for raping and, whatever is necessary to fulfill that drive. I mean, drug addicts will kill people to satisfy that drive. Yeah. And I think it kind of leans to more of the sadistic behaviors. Anyway, those are just kind of my thoughts. But, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is just kind of something that's kind of, supposedly in history, it originates with the Jacobites, in the Bible, because they were circumcisionists. and yeah, which brings me to one of my favorite books of all time, which was The Red Tent. It was based on the 4 wives of Jacob who were you know, red tent. You know, they had their periods together and drank killer beer and partied, you know, while they were having their period, their moon cycles that were, you know, it's a really great book. Recommend highly reading it. It's just a beautiful read. So yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's definitely interesting. I've never been married either. And there between my parents there are 7 marriages. And it's so marriage just never has really been one of those things I've ever really desired. Like, I just don't get the point. I don't see the purpose other than for like tax purposes or insurance purposes or just that for certain people. But in my case, like with like my student loan debt and all that, I don't want to get married to anybody. I don't want anybody to have to take that on. You know, I get married and then under income-based repayments with student loans, then my spouse has to take on responsibility for that. Like, I
Well,
don't.
but the other thing too, like I think about, you know, like I'm hardcore, because I haven't been married. I think my longest relationship's been like, 3 years. I always was like, had the 3-year rule. And, I've been completely celibate and, haven't dated or anything in like 20 years. A lot of that has to do with, having to recover from brain cancer and all the things that I did alternatively, diet and all this other stuff pushed it to the point, but they just needed to get over the hurdle all the way. And so I went back to a lot of the old shamanism practices that I was taught to generate power. And so that's when I kind of really got serious about where my energy and my power was going and cleaning it all up so that I could recover. So, I've happily chose, my path and my walk. But I'm a lot, I'm pretty crazy for most people in general because of, my belief systems. But I look at it like marriage is more of what I'm going to lose, what the woman loses.
It feels like a loss. Feels like a lot of losses.
Well, it's not like you can get married and then, like the person you're married to wants to buy a house, wants to have a fence. You end up kind of as a possession in that whole, movie.
I think, well, that's the whole point, I think, of making girls able to be married off at 14, and that's why they still are married off at very young ages in other cultures, because they're seen as objects and they're objectified. They're just seen as like vessels, basically, for men to impregnate.
Well, the thing is, like, the other thing too is that if you get them that young, then you can pre-train them, to be designed how you want them to be, instead of, when they get older and they start figuring out who they are and that they actually want a life, they want to,
Yeah.
pursue an education or write a book or, usually that's around about the time of menopause. And that's usually when your divorce is really you're going to have major divorce time because, you're a little bit more cranky and difficult. You're not as nice as you used to be. Those hot flashes really turn you into a grizzly bear. Anyway, but yeah, I always think about more about what I would have to, what I have to give up.
I'm an only child of a single mom, and I've been staying home alone since I was 8. Like, I really value my personal space. I really value.
Well, I mean, like, okay, so as you're like, I always, yeah, no, I'm curious because, I always, now that I've, done all the healing work, around like intimate relationships, ones I've had in the past, and I'm really know who I am, and I really know where, I don't know, my energetic boundaries are. I also know what I need more than, anything. And what I need is sleep, good quality, sleep. That's one big thing that I've learned in my life that I really, really need. And I really need regular meals. That's another really big thing. And there are just some things that I really, really need that I can't really get around or change my lifestyle in a way that I'm not going to get that met. And like, I don't, at this point in time, if I did decide, I think, to have a relationship with somebody, I think we should have 3 bedrooms. You have your own room, I have my own room, and then we have the meetup room.
There you
Because,
go.
yeah, I just want to have like my own space with all my stuff sorted so I know kind of like where I'm at. And, it may be weeks or months before I may even go into the meetup room. It depends on if I have time or not. And just because
Right?
I'm married doesn't mean that, that's all that's included,
You're not on call?
Yeah, no, I'm not on call. And I might, if you make me mad enough, I might stab you in the leg with a fork. But just kidding. But like I don't like I always thought like, Ozzy and Harriet, they had the same room and they had separate beds, and I always thought, oh, yeah, if you have to be married, have separate beds. Because I do sleep with my dog. She's pretty big. She's really long. When she lays out, she's like the length of a person, and she's about Labrador size. And the older she gets, she snores. She snores sometimes so loud, and takes up quite a bit of the bed. Pushes me to the side, and I don't mind her just because I know she's getting older, and and she wants to be close and wants to cuddle, but I just think to myself like, I just wouldn't want to share a bed with somebody. Like absolutely positively not. I just don't want to, like my dog's fine, that's one thing. But like as an adult, I don't really feel like that's something that that's what I want to do. It's kind of interesting, like when I first decided to walk a path, I was going to initially when I was 32, because of the brain cancer. I had to get really serious, and I was going to try to do like, an oath of silence or something like that, or 30 days of lodge, or, I was trying to figure out what I would do to kind of kick it off, and where I would start. And it seemed really hard to get a lot of these other things kind of together. So one of my teachers said, hey, why don't you just do like an oath of celibacy for a year? And so I said, okay, well, like what should that entail? And I'm like, great, doable. And it was interesting because after about the 3rd year, I stopped doing a lot of things. And I realized that even though I grew up in a very alternative family that was very outdoorsy, hunting and, big fisher family, that there I still had downloaded some, harsh woman programming. And what I call it baiting. And it was something that I had learned to do. And so I spent, a lot of money, extra money on stuff, clothing, maybe makeup, whatever, so that I could look more appropriate, when I went out and socialized. And I socialized a lot. I spent a lot of money on socializing. And I realized like a lot of these behaviors, once I became like okay with myself and okay about building my own life, my own way, and getting a lot of this stuff accomplished, that after about 3 years, my desire for any kind of partnership kind of just went away, and the exhaustion that came with it, and also the economic financial price of debt that also comes along with that behavior. So
I like the idea of like if a partnership or if a relationship or like a marriage is like a business, well then we might as well run a business together, and it better be a damn good effective business and have some sort of financial value and something that can sustain us both. But
Well, I think
I
the
think
thing
that's
is like both have to you have to get in a relationship where you both have equal financial standing.
yeah, good luck finding that, huh?
And you're both putting in the same amount of equality, and that has to do with money. Because if you're not, then, the person who is making the money is always going to make the rules about how, things go down. But, one thing that we do have in Nevada that's interesting is in 2009 when I was lobbying, fighting against 50 bills there, some pretty heinous stuff with, some other amazing, brilliant legal minds. One of the bills that came across that I actually was for, it was the only bill that I was for and helped it get passed out of 1,500 bills that year. And one of it was, I forget what it was called. I think it was like SB 25 or something like that. Anyway, it was about contractual marriage. And I was totally for it, but some of the conservative people that were also helping me to fight at the legislature, some really hardcore conservatives, they were like totally against it because like, oh, it's the gay marriage bill. I'm like, but I would like this bill. It doesn't say anything about gay in it, right? It's just a contractual relationship bill to where you could come together with the person that you want to be with. You don't have to get married. And this person writes down, their goals, what they have, all this stuff, money, bank accounts, blah, 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 blah. They put on there things like, what's the deal breaker of the relationship for them? Like, what thing are you going to do where that contract is going to be null and void, and they get to take everything that they put into the relationship and leave immediately, right? So you get to have these things in this contract. And so both people kind of write theirs, and then they come together and then they negotiate one. And you could have it for like a test run. Okay, let's do this for 5 years, right? And at the end of 5 years, the contract's null and void. And if you liked it, then maybe the next one you're going to write. And it was only $25 to file it.
Really?
So you could have, and usually contractual law has more standing, especially in the financial type arenas, than family law, which is divorce, because they just, they steal everything, 100%. So I always thought, well, it would just be better to have a contractual. Plus, I wouldn't have to worry about it. And there are things that I don't like about. I mean, I think if I ever had a relationship with somebody, I'd probably go kind of through, more ceremonial type, spiritual, whatever, come together kind of commitment. But I definitely wouldn't want to get married because, the last thing that I'm ever going to say to anyone is I obey. That ain't going to happen. I obey no one. I don't love, honor, and obey. That is just not something that is going to ever come out of my mouth. And it's like, it's not something that, it's not a spiritual thing. Think about that you're going to say that to another human being as a spiritual sacred contract. I will obey you.
It doesn't sit well with me either. I don't like being told what to do.
Talk about a magic spell.
Right? Words are important. They play that conscious level, and you say it out loud, and you put that into that ceremony. I mean, you're locking it into your brain, whether you're aware of it or not.
Yeah, and if you believe in the law of attraction, then, I will love, honor, and obey you. Oh, good, you're going to get more people to obey.
Here come the demands, right?
Here comes the obey. What would you call that? Who would be the people that you would obey? Would they be the obeyist? The obeyist?
I don't know, the masters, the domineers, the oppressors.
Yeah.
The one in charge. goes back to all the words, the charge, right? The one in charge of creating the energetic tone for the relationship. I love you. I love you too, buddy. Look, then you've got to think about kids in and all of it too, because then, okay, it's one thing if it's between, one or between two people or three people or four, whatever the relationship dynamics are. But when you start bringing the kids into it, then you have to start taking that into consideration. And one of the things that you were saying about really needing sleep and needing regular food, like what screwed me up was one, in being pregnant. This needs to be down, Betty. This can't be super loud, thank you. And being pregnant, right, like that throws off the regular eating cycle. I mean, my first trimester, I couldn't keep anything down except for freaking water and saltine crackers for 3 months. And then my last 2 trimesters, within that time period, I ended up putting on 50 pounds. And I'm a tiny person, and so that was like a big whoo to the body. And then after having my son, I was back down and had lost all that extra weight and was back to my regular weight within, I think, 4 months. And then just trying to like keep up with the production to feed the baby on top of not sleeping. I didn't get 8 hours of sleep until my son was 3. So for 3 years, up every hour to 2 hours and not having full cycles. I mean, and not having the help and support in that. I remember watching or just seeing online and posts of friends and acquaintances about the same age with the kids the same age. They're like, oh, grandma and grandpa, took the baby for a week so I could go and have an adventure in the woods and whatever. Like, I never got that. Never. And it's when it comes to sleep, it's just made everything so difficult. I mean, that's why I started my radio show initially at 2, 3 in the morning on Wednesdays. Is because I was already awake. I mean, for the 2, 3 years prior to that, like my body was up and awake, even though my son was sleeping. And just over the course of doing that for almost a year, and then just some of the general stresses since then, and then not having to do a radio show that early in the morning, my sleep has leveled out, so I've been able to get like regular sleep. But last night it was kind of back to that, like every time I'd fall asleep I was interrupted and probably got like a max of 2 hours of sleep. And I had like my body had kind of adapted to it or got used to it, I think. I just kind of felt more of like the lack of sleep for all those years that I didn't realize how well I've been sleeping until last night when I only got 2 hours. Like today, I'm just, like I just don't feel well. Like sleep is so, so, so important. And then you got to think about those kind of things when you're going into relationships too. It's like, well, are we going to have a kid? Well, what happens if we accidentally have a kid, right? And then who's going to do what, where, when, and how? And then like, how many times do like accidental pregnancies interfere with relationships in different ways? And those things aren't discussed, huh? I know, huh? Yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah.
That's so funny. That is so funny. His background comments.
Yep. He says, yep. It's just, I don't know. And then after having kids, like the thought of having another kid again, or even of like putting out, like, and having like, I don't know, like it's just like the last thing on my mind. Like there's just so many other things at the forefront that the thought of like taking on a relationship or even getting married at this point in my life, like if anybody would want that with me, I mean, they'd have to be willing to sit down and have some pretty long, serious conversations and uncomfortable conversations about what those expectations are and what that would look like. Because I don't know. I think people definitely need to be on the same page about it. And communication.
Well, that's like
on the same page.
That's the issue, isn't it? The whole the whole thing about communication. Yeah.
Well, when programmed, like, but you're the woman or you're the girl. I don't know, like the contracts, I guess, that the government sets for what marriage means. It gets squirrely, and I think it makes the expectations for relationships, at least here in America, just very.
Well, I mean, think about, like, for example, when you have when you get married, like in a kind of an American kind of ideal marriage, right? The woman wears this huge, floofy, lacy dress. She looks like a present,
Yep.
right? It looks like he can just unwrap the present and then, he owns the present, what's in the box because it was given to him. I mean, whenever I see somebody in a big lacy dress, I always say, oh no, another one's been wrapped up like a present.
Here comes the bride.
Feel the present. Here comes the present.
All dressed in wrapping paper.
Exactly. Material wrapping paper. And it's interesting, like how we, like you said, I mean, a lot of this stuff is ritualized, and it's all just kind of, I'm not saying like, people shouldn't have those kinds of venues and weddings, but I mean, I think long before that, maybe you should, go do yoga retreat weekend or something together.
Really
And just
think about
see,
it.
see if your partner can be quiet, see if you can be quiet, see how good your communication skills are, see how much pressure, your partner can go through, see where their, hot buttons are, and also, be able to see that kind of stuff in yourself. But I mean, go and do something that kind of pushes you to the test to just see, how good your skills are. Like when things get really serious, like how good are you at being able to communicate? And, this is kind of an interesting thing that I learned from a friend of mine, that he was in the Marines. And one of the things that he said was that you learn, in like special forces and stuff like that, and you learn how to communicate everything that you need to communicate in one sentence. Say for example, there's like, you have like 10 things going on. You have to figure out a way to communicate it all in one sentence. Or, so we would be having a conversation about something, and I'd be going on and on and on. And he would say something to me like, is this serious? And is this something that you really need me to listen to? Or can we just really get through it if you can like just, do you have just one sentence that, can put all of this, 20-minute conversation into? And I realized like that's a hard thing to communicate. Yeah. And I realized like, we ramble on and on and on about nonsense that is just so not important. And to this day, I can't really put like a whole week into like one sentence.
It's tricky. I have a hard time with it too. Well, maybe that's why like women are spiderweb thinkers, right? Where we can see all the interconnections between all of the things, whereas men are more typically linear thinkers, right? Where A, B, C, like we just here to there. I don't know. I like talking. I like talking, but I like silence too. But you said something to me a while back that has really stood out to me, and that I find myself saying and using within my work, is the difference between ritual and ceremony, right? Where like if it's ritualized or if it's a ritual, then it's not necessarily something that you want to be involved in. Whereas the ceremonial aspect, the energy is different, or the intention, the conscious way that it manifests itself is different. I just think that when it comes to the words that we use and the ways that we use them, understanding those differences, especially with how the words connect to the action. Because if it's a ritual and it's connected to things like witchcraft or trying to force something to do something, right, then you're playing around with stuff messing up stuff from the ego, right? And it's not coming from a space that is connected to nature. But if it's something that's ceremonial, there's the implication that everything is tied together in like a respectable way, or in a relational way that honors all of the things. It's not trying to force something, but it's the ceremony of recognizing the importance and marking a time period in order to allow nature to take its course as it naturally does.
Well, I think ritual, is for me, is me, about me, what I want, what I need. And I don't really care sometimes how I get that. And then ceremony to me is my family and all the relationships that I have. And most of when I think about ceremony, I don't always think about other people that I have relationships with. I think about my food. I think about trees. I think about seeds. I think about soil. I think about water. I think about beings. And kind of that kind of context. So it puts me into a place where I now have a personal responsibility, right, to be balanced and aligned in whatever energy that I decide to participate in, because all those other beings are there with me as well. And so it makes me a little bit more protective, a lot more serious, and more about the everything versus me.
Yeah. So I think ceremony is important.
Well, I think your life should be a ceremony where you're completely conscious about, every word that comes out of your mouth. Not that I'm, the queen of this, but these are kind of my expectations and standards of, which is a whole other, Buddha thing. But walking. I'll never forget this book, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was about this guy who became this monk, and it was like a Zen kind of a silent type monkhood, and he went in very young, and he said he basically spent 25 years learning how to open and close doors. And so through the course of this book, he talks about that, about how when he does, after 25 years being at the monastery, he's like almost 30, leaves, and how noisy the world is and how unconscious they are, because all these sounds are producing vibrations, and people want to talk about cymatics and sound frequencies. Well, we're producing them all the time with our voices slamming doors. And he talked about how in the monastery it was like silent, like you could hear anything happen, like anything. And part of being there was, this whole silence thing, so that you're not producing sound. And he said he could literally walk extremely fast through the monastery and not make one sound. This is how good he got. And opening and closing doors, like he could almost, connect with that doorknob before he touched it energetically, and almost started the process of turning that knob and opening it. And the same thing with closing it. And it always stood with me about, all the sounds that we are producing and how negative they all are, how heavy-footed we are when we walk. We leave a vibrational sound footprint in everywhere and everything that we do. I was even thinking, you have a car, you could, maybe somebody could make I don't know, really good rims for the car, so that it actually is producing a really good, megahertz sound frequency as you drive it down the road. That's, really healing, and that could kind of maybe override some of the other noises that are going around. I mean, like birds die when there's a sonic boom. It gives them a heart attack, and this is scientifically proven. And so here what we're doing all these vibrations that we're inducing, into the home, this place that we live. And we wonder why I wonder why anything's still alive. I mean, all these awful sound frequencies coming at all these things. I mean, I would just curl up and die. I can barely cope some days.
What I think is interesting, like, it makes me think of people on the autism spectrum. Some of them, I don't think it's associated with all of them, but sound sensitivity is a big one. And if you've never seen a person with autism respond to an overstimulation of sound, or if you've never felt that sort of overstimulation from that, where you just can't break free of the repetition. I mean, it's maddening. It just makes people, especially people with autism, like, it just makes them, like, just shut down. They don't function. They can't get beyond that sound. Or the same thing, I was a part of a research study where we were looking at visual habituation in autism. So it's the same thing with lights. So, like, if you can't habituate to things that are auditory, right? If it's the same thing with light or with visual stimulation. So it's why like the flickering lights in the light poles, or the fluorescent lights, right? Why a lot of persons within the autism spectrum have a difficult time being in rooms with fluorescent lights, because they're flickering, and your neurotypical person will habituate to the flickering, and they'll cease to notice it. But I think that's the same thing with a lot of sounds. Like, people have just habituated to it. They just don't notice that it's there anymore. But I think we as a collective, perhaps with autism, because of all the extra vibrations and all the extra stimulation, like, it's affecting us on a genetic level. And it's sad. It's because it's just a sound, but at the same time, like, that peace and that quiet, I think, is so important to our soul and our well-being and our health.
Yeah, I think, like, especially dealing with consciousness. I mean, when I had brain cancer, it got to where I couldn't be in, bright light. Light really bothered me. And to this day, people are always like, why are you always in the dark? It's like, because light gets to me after a while. So even though I've completely healed my brain cancer, and alternatively, there are still some things that are funky. Like, I can't go into movie theaters. I can't have that sound impacting me with that sound and flashing light. I had to have a movie stopped so that the management could turn on the lights and I could get out, because it made me so off and so dizzy that I couldn't get down the stairs and get out of the movie theater. And it's like that. It'll never change. And then there's weird movement stuff too that I have, where like, escalators, I can't go in airplanes at all. And things like that, elevators, I just can't. The movement is too funky for my brain, or my brain just doesn't respond well with it, because, maybe there's a piece that deals with balance or sound or light that just never came back. So I have, like, these weird funky things. So not that I'm autistic, but I can tell when I've had too much sound, and I can tell when I've had too much light. And super sensitive, and I'll never be able to, do those kinds of things, like get on an airplane. I've tried, and especially now with how my brain works in airplanes, and also all this crazy stuff at airports and everything else, there's just no way that I could even muster up a remote piece of strength to be able to endure all that. My mind would just crack, I think. But yeah, so I think, some people, I think a lot of people that are outrunning their life or outrunning whatever usually can desensitize themselves with music and sound, drinking and drugs, and, a whole host of things that they don't notice that their brain is not really responding well to, but they don't really care because they're trying to, like, override it. Silence silence it, silence themselves.
You know what I can't do are strobe lights.
It'll make you sick.
Oh yeah, I don't like them. It's like panic attack and just same thing. Like my brain just goes kind of funky, or just I just don't. Yeah, I remember one time too, and I wonder if it's like from PTSD or something. I don't know. Like I've just always been very sensitive to energetic stuff. But I remember, well, it was when I was living in Los Angeles too, in the same little apartment. And the fire alarm went off, or the smoke detector went off, and I couldn't get it to turn off, and I couldn't get the thing off the ceiling, and like just I broke down, like I just freaked out, and like I think I had to call my boyfriend, tell him to like hurry up and get home because I couldn't get this thing to turn off, and I just like ended up in a corner just rocking and just not being able to like come to until that sound was off, because the only thing in my brain was just this and I couldn't get it to stop no matter what I did, and like hitting it, like it just turned me into this thing, and I just like ended up in a ball and like couldn't do it. Nope. I feel like part of it was probably a lot of PTSD stuff, because I feel like I've been able to reconnect and reassociate with my body a lot better, and like I don't know, just different challenges I guess that my body has experienced, because that was all like pre having a kiddo, and I just feel like since having a kid, like I'm in a different body. My brain might kind of be partially the same, but everything just feels like it just functions very differently hormonally. I don't know. And I feel like too there's a lot of like stress and other factors in my life, and I'm still so young. So it's a bit difficult, I think, to objectify it being in the midst of it. So it'll be interesting another 10, 20, 30 years down the road of how I'll relate back to this point in my life.
You won't. You'll just say, "Oh God, I was crazy back then." That's what you'll say. You'll say, "I was like so far off." I mean, that's how I feel being 52 now. I feel like 50s are, I mean, so far like the best years of my life. I mean, yeah, you can see, some aging going on, but I think heart-wise, mental-wise, hormone-wise, like, I just feel so good. I mean, I spent my whole 20s like crying hysterically. I just emotionally just didn't deal well with the world, and trying to figure things out and which direction to go in, and trying to deal with other people and relationships and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it would have been perfect as, if I would have had parents that, could have afforded, it would have been good for them to just send me to an ashram in India for my 20s so that I could just work it out.
I would say in my early 20s, like having an opportunity to go to an ashram would have been fantastic too. Because same thing, especially like the earlier part of the 20s, and just trying to process and make sense of it all. Like,
yeah, on the outside I looked tough, and but in the inside I was an emotional walking disaster area. I mean, like just a disaster area. I mean, yeah.
On that side, I've always been kind of a disaster area, but I've always been pretty tough on the inside.
Well, but I think, when you're young, it's like that. But, the older you get, you just kind of figure yourself out, and you put yourself together. And I know that, men don't get their rites of passage, and, but a lot of women, we have some serious rites of passage. And I think that we just glaze over our monthly cycle and, all these other things that go along with us, and what that means, and our responsibility, and the pressure that people put women under, and just, those kinds of choices, and putting yourself, on a back burner for most of your life until, you can finally start actually analyzing yourself instead of just playing a game, like a movie role and the role of whoever wants you to be whatever. Oh, we're going to go to break here pretty quick. I should check.
Yeah.
I should check in and see what's going on.
I don't hear anything yet, but any moment now, I think the break will be starting.
It will.
Should be.
It'll kick in, and we'll hear it. So we'll just.
But there's so much to talk about.
I know. Sometimes we always do.
Oh yeah. Well, there it is.
Go. Yay! All right, everybody, break. We'll see you about 1 after. Dinosaurs. All right. So this is the second hour of Carrying Stones and Digging Holes to Cultivate Consciousness. Your hosts, Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff and Kelsey Sweet. And and you can go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and you can click on the donation button, drop down menu, all kinds of interesting ways. Oh, I think we even have, for foreign currency donations, we even have, I think, a drop box.
Buy a t-shirt.
Yeah, buy a t-shirt, buy a mug, in our shop, in our store, Patreon. Yeah, give us some donations because everything we do here is free. All of us volunteer, our management included, and we just ask that you help us to keep the lights on and keep going. And because we work a lot and we work hard, and our management works really hard, and it'd be great to make it a lot easier on them so they don't have to stress out about where the money's going to come from. A lot of us work, other jobs too. So we still make time to produce the best content we can. We have every kind of host you could ever imagine on Revolution Radio. So check in and check the schedule and check out what some of the hosts are doing, and you might find some other shows that you're highly interested in. And yeah, so all right. So I was thinking I would read I found a little Libra thingy, a Libra full moony thingy.
I'm Libra rising, so that's fun.
Ooh. All right.
Back of the day.
All right. So this comes from Mindfulness website. It says, peace, love, and serenity are the order of the day on March 28th as the 2021 Libra full moon shines overhead at 2:48 p.m. EDT. The second super full moon of the year is also a pink moon. So it's a super full moon and it is a pink moon. I have no idea what the pink moon means, but we'll travel on here. The harmonious zodiac sign Libra counts among its ranks John Lennon, Alfred Nobel, and Gandhi, whose advice to be the change you wish to see in the world will feel like the answer to many questions under the lunar light. The 2020 Libra full moon shining its balancing beams into the world that feels completely out of order. We can restore equilibrium. Can we restore equilibrium to the planet? Libra is the zodiac sign of balance and partnership. This full worm moon can help light the way, named for the time when worms come through the soil. This lunar lift, a fertile time of enjoying the fruits of relationships and harvesting win-wins. While Libra's primary peace-loving sign, there's no glossing over the issues. 2021 Libra full moon arrives directly opposite harmonizing Venus and wounded healer Chiron, both in Aries, the sign of the warrior. Don't be surprised if some long-standing issues rise to the surface this weekend. The trick is to lead with love, remembering that at the end of the day, you are actually still sitting on the same side of the table. How can you create a compromise that also feels like it has everyone's best interest at heart? Structured Saturn will trine this full moon, helping everyone to act like an adult, even when the anxiety or hurt feelings rise up. And that's the end.
I like
So
that.
put your big boy panties on this weekend.
It's a pink wormy moon.
It's a pink wormy moon. And you guys should be an adult. So I have a game that I've been playing, and
Okay.
it's kind of based off of that brick game. That you
Where you
name
stack
all the
them, or
you name all the things about a brick in
the
30
brick
seconds.
storm? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of based on that.
Cool.
But I've been doing I was thinking maybe we could all do it together. And we'll give two we'll give how many seconds did you give for the brick? 2 minutes?
I think we started out with 1 minute. 1 minute or 2 minutes. Usually do one or 2 minutes first, and then upwards to 5. But it's
Okay.
radio.
All right. So we'll do like we'll do
1
1
minute.
minute for each thing. And then so we'll do the one, and then we'll do 1 minute, and then we'll talk about what we get.
Do I need a pencil and paper?
You may, because you might want to do some brainstorming for yourself. And then we'll do the next one for a minute, and then we'll talk about that one. But I've had some really kind of interesting things develop by using this with some other questions.
Bum, bum, bum. Okay.
And so we're not going to be just describing a brick, all the things about a brick. We're going to use kind of a question statement.
Okay.
A question. Okay, so let me see. So we're going to go for 1 minute, and let me get a time clock here just to be professional. A time clock. Yeah. Let me see. Time clock. And it's not as easy that you can find a time clock. Oh, a stop. That's what I need.
Stopwatch.
A stop. Okay.
Stopwatch.
Online stopwatch. Here we go. Let me get it. Okay. All right. So we're going to get 1 minute. And what we're going to be asking ourselves, and so, just probably one word or, a couple words, but put down as many things come to mind about it in the course of a minute. Okay, so the question is, what do I need? You have 1 minute. Let it go. All right, I'm going to talk here while I do the countdown here, while everybody else is doing this. What do I need? Write down as many words or, little mini statements or whatever comes to your mind in the course of a minute. What do I need? And we're halfway through. So what do I need? Whatever comes to mind, write that down. You have a whole minute to keep writing as much stuff that just keeps surfacing. Just keep with it. Stay with the game. And if you haven't gotten anything yet, just hang in there. Hang in there. You may get something. So the question is, what do I need? Anything that comes to mind, write it down. And 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. Oh, hold on. Ooh, there we go. Okay. We are done. All right, I'll go first because I did this the other day.
Okay.
And I was really surprised at the first comment that came to my mind when I did this the other day. What do I need? And this voice, loud as day, said, I need to be left the F alone. I was like, a little anger. So anyway, I probed it. I probed it for a while. And it just seemed, for me, the overwhelming sense that came to me was that I just really needed some space. And so I'm considering next week taking 3 days off to just go, simple camping, car camping, just to kind of
awesome.
Get up, see the sunrise, go to bed, see the sunset, get coffee, sleep a lot, but just relax. Okay, so what did you get anything? What do I need that you want to share?
Well, let's see. I got a couple of them down. My first one was sleep. That's obvious. But I put sleep, peace, money, love, fun, support, juice, a booty, and 20 pounds. And pepperoni came to mind.
Wow, are you hungry?
I'm always hungry. Come to find out, my thyroid's on the hyper end of things. So I'm always hungry. That's what I learned from my blood panel the other week. I'm still in the green, but I mean, I'm right on the edge. I think the scale is something like 1 to 200 or 1 to 300 or something like that, and I'm at 14. So
yeah, sounds like you need some iodine and magnesium.
I have both supplements, and I try to add them in on occasion. And well, when you sent me the link for the stromium or whatever, I looked up some homeopathic remedies kind of from the same thing that have to do with thyroid stuff. And so I'm kind of giving that a go. But
yeah, magnesium is the big one. Magnesium, vitamin E, and iodine. And you need to take magnesium twice a day, like a lot of it.
I've got a couple of them. So I've got like the magnesium, like the full. I don't know. I'll talk to you about it. I'll talk to you about that part of it later.
But anyway, those are like things that'll help to really kind of neutralize it a little bit because it's hungry. Sounds like your thyroid's hungry. It's not getting the nutrient and food that it needs.
My body's hungry. Yeah, I'm a 3,000 to 4,000 calorie a day type of person, especially if I'm working out.
All right. Okay, so getting my stopwatch ready. Okay. Second question. So this is the second question we're going to be asking ourselves. And so whatever pops into your mind, like write it down if you want. We're going to do it for 1 minute. And it is, who am I? Start. Who am I is the question. We're going to do it for 1 minute. And whatever pops into your mind, go ahead and write it down. Even if it's weird or strange or whatever. Who am I? What comes to mind? All right, we're at the halfway mark about. So, who am I? We have about 30 more seconds. So just keep brainstorming, whatever comes to mind. Write it down. One word, mini sentences, anything that drifts up into your mind. We're trying to tap into the subconscious, what is down below that we don't actually have a lot of relationship with. All right, we're coming into the final stages here, and we're about there, and we've got about 3 seconds. Okay, put it down. Put it down.
Okay. How do you know I haven't put it down? Okay, fine.
Put it down. Okay, I'll go first because I did this the other day. And basically had a lot to do with I don't know who I am. I don't know anymore. It was kind of interesting because for a couple of days after, I thought about, who I thought I was at one time. And I thought about, things that we say about ourselves, like I'm an osteopath and a nutritionalist and I'm an herbalist and a medical intuitive. And I was like, but that's not who I am. That's who, I pretend to be. And so I've been working. Yeah. So I've been really working with that because, it's kind of interesting, to be 50 and go, I don't know anymore. Like I have no idea, which is probably a good place to be. All right. Did you get anything? Any thoughts?
Okay. Who am I? Kelsey Sweet. I sat on that one for a little while. Artist. Neat. Then hungry came to mind. And mommy mom. That was the next one.
So you didn't really have a whole lot. That was a tough one, huh? It was a little bit of a tough one.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I felt like I was pretty content at first with just having my name down, and then just kind of let a couple of other things pop up. Because I feel like there's like a lot of like the labels and the things on there, or like I don't know, and I think a lot about like me as a like my personality types or anything like that as a psychologist. A lot of the work that I've done is like personality profiling. I think most psych students end up going through the rigmarole of psych evals, or not necessarily psych evals, but personality evaluations and things like that. And so there's like the INFP. I think my Enneagram's a 4 with a wing of 5. I don't know. Taurus. Like there's all those like those things, or like my human design. I'm a manifester. That kind of stuff. But it's not really like who I am. But I think the name part of it stuck out. I heard something the other day along the lines of like, I am not my name. My name is just who. It's just like the energy or something that inhabits my experience, or like my name is the name of my experience, or it's like the thing that is naming my experiences, not necessarily who I am. Like I am not necessarily my experience.
That's interesting. I like that.
I'll have to send you the video, because I think it's that forgiveness video a friend of mine sent to me, and I posted it up a couple places, but I'll send it to you. That was a big one. And then hungry came to mind, and I just thought it was funny because like our conversation from question 1 replayed in my head, and I was like, wow, at lunch I ate 4 hot dogs today. Like,
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 4 hot dogs. And that's not like the only thing. I had like a protein shake today, and what else did we eat? Fruits. We made like flaky biscuits, and I downed a V8, and I've been sucking on one of these like Hanson's cane sodas, and it's just like, I think so much of like who I am has been tied up in just in my body. I feel like because so many people throughout my life have pointed to me, or pointed to my body, or wanted to relate to my body more so than to my mind. So there's that part of it. At the end of it, at the very end, the last one, you're like, put your pencil down. I wrote down love again. I don't really know how I feel about that in terms of like the love energy, but it came to mind. But it's something that I need, or it's something that I don't know. Playing around with that. That one's still in my head.
All right, we've got one more.
Okay.
The torture continues. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I just thought it was interesting because I was like thinking, when I was doing these a couple of days ago, I thought, oh, I could do that brick thing, and I could, just throw myself some questions and just see what happens. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of, like a breakthrough exercise or a reconnection kind of exercise. And doing it. Okay, so we're going to do this for a minute as well. So whatever pops up into your reality, in your mind, in your chatter-box, whatever floats up, any way, shape, or form, write it down. And let me just, going to get ready to start. So the question is, what do I want? We're starting right now. And so we're going to do it for a minute. And you're asking yourself, what do I want? And word, sentence, whatever, whatever, comes up, whatever your chatterbox puts forth, your mind, your chatterbox. Go ahead and write that down. And we're almost at a half a minute. All right, now we're coming into the home stretch, about 20 seconds. And the question is, what do I want? And whatever surfaces, write that stuff down. That way you can play with it for a couple of days. You can kind of stew in it, chew on it, stomp on it, tear it apart. All right, just a couple seconds left here. All right, and we're done. Put the pencil down. All right.
Okay, my pencil's down.
All right, so I did this a couple days ago. And what do I want? And
Bridgette.
What's that?
What do you want, Bridgette?
Well, I just, it was just this really interesting thing, like the word sunsets and sunrise and every moment and like ceremony. But, what came with it was this sense of like not wanting to miss out on what's going on, like in nature anymore, like, not putting all this stuff in front of, because, I think like being 52, that I want to experience, more of nature. I want to be able to get up and just sit with a cup of coffee and watch the sunrise every morning, or I've always been, highly busy. And I've always been like an achiever, even though I was big into nature, and I still am in a different way, with herbal medicine and growing food. And I still hike quite a bit. But I wanted to be able to just observe, I think, nature more, have every moment. That way, when I leave this world, I don't want to miss stuff like that, because what's beautiful to me about this world is the sunsets and the sunrise and the clear blue sky and clouds, laying on your back, watching clouds go by. Or a really cool thing is to lay under a big, huge tree and look up into it, when it has all of its leaves and everything, check out its patterns. And
I think that.
Yeah, so that's kind of like what came up was, so what do I want? And so it's made this week a little bit more challenging for me, because it was a shit poop show week. There was all kinds of drama and chaos this week coming into this, Libra full moon for sure. With the sun activating it, all the stuff too, because, everything went into Aries, the opposite. So just a lot of craziness going on with people, and not really being able to find balance this week. And even my days off were taken up because I had to finish this, 120 credit program, and all the other stuff that had to go down this week, and basically was chasing everything to the end till today, where I got everything kind of like, at least up to today. So I realized, like, going into next week that I'm going to have to try to figure out, how to make sure that I have days off, and that these moments, these being in the morning and being at the night and it's a very shamanism thing, when I was doing really heavy shamanism, it all was around, the sun, and the sun coming up and the sun going down, and and how do I incorporate this into my life, maybe having to, shift my schedule around. And definitely next week things slow down quite a bit, and I'm just thinking maybe I should just, go do some simple car camping somewhere for 3 days, and just, get away from the house and everything else, and really visit watching the sun come up, right? And really visit, being present and watching the sun go down. So anyway, what have you got?
I have now a beautiful picture of sunsets in my head. I love the sunsets too. The sunsets, especially here in northern Nevada. I grew up in Carson City mostly. Spent most of my time there. There's just something about the sky, the way that it frames around the mountains, kind of over the mountains. But the sunsets here in Reno, they're very vibrant too, but they're just a hair more vibrant in Carson. The sunsets are so rich. The colors are just stunning and amazing. And the sunsets are what inspired me to paint and still do, like landscape painting and just trying to match that sky. So my brain's just so happy with sunsets. I love sunsets. But my wants. Love came forward too. I don't know why that's on my mind. Hot dogs have been on my mind. So as far as like wants, I want the hot dog guy to call me. I don't want to go into that conversation though. It's just well, we started out the show on like relationships and what like those expect like, and when I was going through graduate school, I think towards the end of it, the head of the program described me as a tragic romantic. I'm an artist, and I did a performance art piece on individual and social impacts of sexual violence for my capstone project. And so I got to process and explore so much of what has happened in my life, I guess, when it comes to sexuality and my love life and relationships. So I just want, I think, just balance. You mentioned the Libra full moon too. Like, I just want emotional balance, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job throughout my life being able to like resolve things, move like through relationships or whatever. But like this one I'm having a hard time resolving, I think, without the conversation or without, I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting over this one and getting past this one. So a conversation with that hot dog guy is something I definitely want. Home. I want my own home so bad. Home, property, space. I just want my own space. Again, I've been asking. That's all I've asked for. I feel like in the last, since I had my kid, it's just space and just that time to be in nature and just, like you said, just be and observe. Just have space to like process and take it all in. I just haven't had much of it. I feel like I can give myself some more of that space now, and I've been slowly working my way towards finding more space. And the next one on my list is freedom. I want freedom. Like that just feels like a lot of things. Or it's just the feeling of being free, safety and security. Safety and security are tied up in that freedom, in that space, in that home, in that property. And then my last want, it was kind of hard to describe exactly what it is, but it came out art box to voice or some sort of like platform or something. So much of what I've been meditating on through the last couple of years and how radio came into being is meditating on throat chakra stuff and communication and voice and like voicing who I am and feeling safe and confident and comfortable enough to be able to voice and just use my voice and express myself through my own vibrations on a platform or in some sort of like container that is just all for that. That would be nice. Or like I've had the amazing privilege during my creative professional time in working with grassroots arts organizations to have a handful of warehouse spaces that have been left to my own devices for periods of time where I get this whole giant open space, right, with great amazing acoustics and brick walls to just turn up music and sing at the top of my lungs. And I so badly want that space. And just like a private, quiet space just for me, just to like get it out and burn out some of that energy. I haven't been able to do that for a while. Can't really do that at home with neighbors and stuff, and I don't feel comfortable like doing that in front of people. But it's something I want. It's just that art box, that space where I can just express myself without having to hold anything back. That would be nice.
So let's talk the last half hour about your Citrus project. So what's it coming out to be? What are you going to do? Because you didn't, last time I talked to you, we haven't really talked about it, but you didn't really know if you're going to do it like every month for a year, or if you're just going to do it for a week, or if you're going to do it online, or some of it's going to be actually public. What topics are going to have. So what's it boil down to?
Well, I guess to right off the bat, what the CITES thing is, it's an acronym for Sex in the Art Scene, and it's a forum space myself and several other people created to, again, I guess just address sexual assault within the community in a somewhat controversial way. This would be the third year of it, and the first year of it, we had a public forum, a community forum, where we focused on boundaries and consent and setting a sacred container for the space. We raised money for some of the organizations, including Safe Embrace, which is a nonprofit organization here that supports people with domestic violence. And so the second year, I basically just turned on a live camera and just held space for the event to process it, because there's so much amazing opportunity here for people to come together and have conversation. And just the conversation that we got to have in this space with like 60 to 70 people was, it was amazing. And I felt like it was progressive, and I felt like it was focused on finding solutions for the community and how to create policy. And there was so much energy there, because people want to do something about this, but it's a tough subject, and it's a tough subject that I think a lot of people just don't want the responsibility of having to navigate all the time, because it's touchy waters, because there's just so much to it. And so with COVID happening and just being aware of domestic violence increasing because of COVID, and people's mental health is, I think some people are definitely struggling when it comes to mental health, and these things are so intertwined, when it comes to sexual violence. It's kind of like sprinkles on something much deeper. It's like, why do people, what is it that makes people do this? Why are people like this? What is it about society that drives people to be like this? And it's so often related to mental health. And that's where it comes from. And then what happens after things like this happen? It's issues related to mental health, and the pinnacle of it being suicide. And that's a huge issue. And that's something that I would like to address at some point within my art as well. But so much of this is so tied to like my personal life memories and things that I don't necessarily want to trudge up all the time. I wasn't a fan of the Me Too movement. I had, shared all my stories years before that for this capstone project. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month throughout the United States, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a national thing. And then so for my master's project, Washoe County here in Reno Sparks, kind of this larger northern Nevada little pocket, accepted April as has recognized April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And there's just so much drama tied into, or just irony really tied into, like persons being involved in this project who had gone on to be accused of rape, and like it's a lot. And so this year my plan is to share my mental health story. And I've had several conversations with different persons about how to present this and what people's perspectives of this project are for the community and like whatever. And it's just, the deeper I dive into it, the more I just want to focus on getting through this one key point of putting on video my mental health story. And I have a lot of anxieties and fears around doing that and the repercussions from doing that for various different reasons. And it's like, because once you put it out there, you can't take it back. And it's something that I want to do, but I want to do well. And I want to do in a way that's going to be effective and motivational. But that's something that's healing for me, you know. And I feel like if I can get through that and I can feel good about whatever comes out, I would at the end of the month be open to like an online forum via Zoom where we can have a conversation about artists and mental health and what that looks like, and continuing on these conversations about how to build policies and carrying this project forward and how we can do things for the next year. And there's so much in terms of a business model that this project can grow, and I'm open to it if the support of the community is there, and if people want to take this seriously and want to do the work, do the work for themselves. I feel like I'm doing the work for myself, and if we could do this work together, it'd be really neat to see where our little community can get to and where it can grow. And so I think within talking about or in trying to brainstorm my mental health story, there's so many like subcategories of topics that I can talk about, and that's something that could easily be done month to month or like through. So I don't know, still feel like I'm kind of on the fence about it, and it's just trying to gauge where people are at in their own lives and trying to gauge where people are at with me kind of in this. I don't know. It's like, do I really, really want to do this? No, not really, but it feels like a calling. It feels like it's something that I'm supposed to do. Like the guides, the voices in my head, those things are all saying, this is how this needs to be done. Don't think about it. Just trust the process and go with it. Show up and do the work. And so I feel like I'm just kind of going with that for now. I think on my website I do have a web page for CEDAs and links to it, and I put together a new Facebook page for it as well. So there's information there, and there's already a number of people, I don't know, maybe 60 to 70 people who've liked the page and gotten on board with it. So I know that the support is there, and I know that the energy is there, and people want to have these conversations, and I feel like I have the energy and the capacity and the wherewithal to do the work and to be able to support other people in going through this journey. I think where I hesitate is in like the repercussions of this work for me. Like, this is very scary work to do. This isn't easy. And with CEDA's one, with a lot of amazing feedback that was given, like there was. Can you have bubble gum? Yes, give me a minute. Let me finish this and I'll go get you some bubble gum, okay? Hang on. But there's I kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, just the scary part about it, like death threats and people calling me perpetrator sympathizer, and like the friendships that have been lost, or just I don't know if there's something else going on outside of this project, or if there's like just I don't know. Reno's very cliquey. It's very crab buckety. It's a small town where like people talk and they have their own things, they have their own opinions of stuff, and it's a very difficult project. And it's one in which I feel very vulnerable. And when you're talking about something like sexual assault, I think there's a lot of fear that comes forward with people because they don't want to be, especially if they're perpetrators or if they've just crossed boundaries or if they've just done something that doesn't sit well. Like there's, I think just a lot of, I don't want to put it on men. They just don't want to, they're not ready to do the work. They don't want to take the responsibility because I think socially it's not safe. And trying to reach out to somebody else, like some of the other feedback I got is like, I'm not going to put myself on the line for your shit. It's like, well, I'm not asking people to put themselves on the line, and I'm doing my best to not make this about my shit. But at the same time, like, there's things that I've experienced that other people have experienced, and hearing that from that person, they're like, there are sexual predators within this community all over the place, and like all these people that we work with, and this and this, like so many of them are sexual predators. Like it's like you just can't avoid it. Like you can't avoid the fact that you're working with somebody who's been a sexual predator at some point, whether you know it or not. And people just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hold these people accountable. And there's just like the fear of what happens. And because like if you expose the wrong person who doesn't want to be exposed, I mean, people get killed over this kind of stuff.
I think it's like
is no joke.
Yeah. Well, and I think, not only is it in that arena, but it's also in the political arena. It's in the medical arena. A lot of alternative practitioners are constantly putting themselves on the line. A lot of them get murdered.
Yep.
Or not letting their, patients or clients participate in, medical murder. So I think sometimes I just think it's the truth. I think the truth is something people don't want to hear. I mean, Remember that video I sent you today about that Scottish or Irish nurse who was talking about that she had to quit her job because they were asking them to have a gag order to be quiet about the whole COVID thing and how it was like a total, complete lie, and that they needed to keep pushing pandemic until they can vaccinate everyone. And so you think about her, you think about in medicine, I mean, her having to, walk away from her job. And this is the other thing too, is the moral dilemma. It's like people can't make the choice. They can't hear the truth. They can't listen to the truth, and they can't do anything about the truth because it directly stands in the way of their job, their relationship, their family, whatever it's in contrast to. And I think that's the overall thing, is that people, it's not that they can't deal with the truth. It's just they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Because they would have to make a moral decision about their life. And, like that nurse, it took a huge amount of courage for her to step away and say, oh, well, I guess I'll starve to death and live in the gutter because I got to do the right thing here.
Yep. So many people don't know how to survive and support on their own, that they're so dependent on the system and just the things around them, or there's just so much fear instilled in people. They don't know how to hear, or I don't know if it's just that people aren't reading the words or aren't listening to the words and making their own like assumptions for things. But like I think when you're very objective with somebody in a somewhat confrontational way, or in a way that is meant to try to resolve something, or if you're trying to like point out the truth of the matter and just deal with it in an objective way, you see people's subconscious stuff, all that, whatever, you see it surface. And if you're attuned at all to watching body language and understanding that, then you can see how people begin to process, and then they shut down, and then the body just creates this energetic barrier that just, it becomes a cloud. And there's just no getting through it.
Well, yeah, I had this crazy experience happen, and I'm just going to kind of glance over it because, I never know who really listens to the show. I mean, I don't really care. I'm just not going to use names. But I had a situation kind of in my own family, in the white bread, really heavily white bread side of my family, in which, we haven't really spoken at all since like 2006. And it was over an incident because one of my family members had a son, and the son had radical personality change in a short period of time. And I mean, everybody knew inside exactly what was going on, that we just didn't have the details. I mean, so who was, molesting him? We weren't sure about how it was going down. Was she actually selling him or letting the predators just babysit him so she could, get drugs or whatever else that her home fry self needed? And it just got to a point, shortly in, where I was just like, this really isn't gonna happen on my watch. And so the grandmother of the boy, of, my family members, the grandmother, I, went to her and I just said, look, this is going on. We all know what's going on. You're the grandmother. It's your obligation to step in and take your grandson and, get custody. You have enough proof that she is not a good mother, that, she drinks and drives, she's doing drugs, it's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure this out. And you need to step in and you need to tell her she can't have him. We'll, as a family, figure out how to make this work, And I remember the grandmother, family member, looking at me and having heard, everything that I said, and her just looking at me and saying, it's not my problem. Everyone gets molested, and I'm trying to retire, and I don't want to take care of anybody else at this point.
I heard something similar at the beginning.
I was shocked at that time because I was only 35. I didn't really understand how people could have that kind of behavior, even though they know it's happening. And
well, it's that allowance, because when I started this whole endeavor to advocate for sexual assault awareness, I had somebody at one point tell me rape happens all the time, Kelsey, what's the big deal?
I know, it's like this is your, rite of passage, right? Being molested as a child and being raped as an adult. These are your they're just natural rites of passage. Just get over it. But I did. Exactly. I want listeners to know that with this family situation, I did file, serious complaints with whoever I could file, and eventually the mother was forced into having psychiatric sessions to get her welfare programs, so that they could actually monitor her and what she was doing with her son. So they actually at least tried to sort of, so I didn't just do nothing.
Right.
I did
do.
And I spent 6 months doing it, and I submitted all over wherever I could file a report, and let people know, and blah, 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 blah. So I did everything that I could.
The kid is lucky to have you looking out for him.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's like around 21. I think he's about 21 now. I have no idea. I haven't seen him since he was 8. Because of decisions that I decided that I was going to do, that I was going to intervene in whatever way that I could make that happen. So, my family kind of, this part of my family pretends like I don't exist anymore. Well, they all just kind of, still believe that it's okay, write a passage that you're molested. Everyone's molested. I just was shocked. It was like, this is why all this is happening.
I think that's
Because
why,
this is
yeah.
this is what they tell themselves. Because, it would make you really angry to stop molestation, for the benefit of children and people. But then you had to go through it all. And your generation and the people that you went through had to go through it all. And nobody was really there for you. So, there's lots of different feelings: guilt, remorse, shame, anger, hostility. If it happened to me, it should happen to other people. It kind of makes people, I guess, feel better about it sometimes.
I guess, or that just seems like that. It's just a super dismissive statement, especially when you put yourself out there and you're vulnerable and you're like, yeah, I feel lonely and I feel uncomfortable, and somebody responds back, well, yeah, everybody does. Like, it's like, well, if everybody is feeling this way and they're all just shoving it down and suppressing it, like, no wonder why everybody is sick. Like, I don't want to shove it down and I don't want to suppress it because it makes me sick. It's wrong. Like, or like just to be able to talk about things in an open way without people having to shut down or like create tension, or just that wall, that big energetic wall of it's not my problem, it's not my thing, like just deal with it. Or like, oh, how was it put to me recently? Like just taking it out of context, but along the lines of like, like guys just like some of us like just, we just need to have sex, like that's just what we're looking for. And it's just like,
The great news for me is that I'm a little bit on the heavy side these days, and I'm old. So I'm out of that game. So it's such a relief. That's another part about being 50 you're going to love.
woo!
Woo! It puts you in the category, which is great. I love being in the category.
It would be nice, because I'm tired of being in the like I'm only talking to you because I want to have sex with you category.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to be a responsible, relationship and
I don't
and
love
have my
you.
life and pay attention to your son and have a little
care about your
thing
feelings.
going on. Yeah.
I just want to have sex with you. Oh, you're not going to have sex with me? Well, fuck you. Oh, man.
Oh, you dropped a bad bomb.
Sorry.
You're in big trouble.
I am in big trouble. Sorry.
Loose lips sink ships.
Uh,
The good news is we're coming to the end of the show, so run away, hide. But so anyway, that was kind of an interesting 2-hour conversation. It's amazing how fast it goes by, our show. And but we're at the end of it. So anyway, it's carrying stones and digging holes to cultivate consciousness, and it's Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's our show time, and we're always in Studio B. And it's Bridgette Dolgoff and Kelsey Sweet. And thanks so much for listening this week. And we will see you next week, which I think is the 1st of April, the beginning of April. So
we won't see you, but you'll hear us.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good timing.
Yeah, super good timing. All right, everybody. Have a great week. And if you want to reach us, just go to our site, coe-llc.com. It's my site, and kelseysweet.com. You can find out all the information about stuff we've talked about today. So anyway, we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.